says, "Therefore, since through God's mercy we have this ministry, we do not lose heart." Verse 16 to 18, "Therefore we do not lose heart." He says it again. "Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light affliction and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. God, I thank you for your word already that has found its place in our hearts. Even as I read these words this morning, God, someone has said, I need that. And that has spoken to me already. And Lord, I pray that the rest of these words that I share would be words that would minister to every life, every heart, God, because every one of us know what it's like to lose faith and lose our heart, lose our desire, and somehow lose our enthusiasm for life. And so, God, I pray that you would take these words and use them for your glory, for I need your Spirit this morning. In Jesus' name, amen. You may be seated. One of my dreams, everyone has dreams. One of my dreams has always been a long road trip in a convertible, of course, with the roof down on a nice, sunny summer season. I've always dreamed of, I've always said to Lon, I want someday a nice, long road trip. Well, on the weekend of June the 28th, my dream became a reality. We attended a family wedding in Jasper, Alberta. Now, earlier in March, I went to an auction, doesn't surprise you, vehicle auction, bought this, look at this car. I bought this car, and it was in a smashed condition. Someone T-boned that car, and it needed a lot of work. So I bought that car in March, and I worked. I had a dream. I had a goal. I want to get this car completely done by the end of June so we can go, and I can drive, and the sun will be shining, the roof will be down, and I can have a nice, long road trip. I completed the project 1 week before we left. Here's the completed car. And it's, man, that's good. I didn't even give you a picture that way. In its transformed condition. Can somebody give me a hand? The roof is down, and we're ready to go. 1 week before we left, I got to get it done. I worked hard, got it done. And so we headed to Jasper, roof down, the wind blowing in my short hair. And I got a short haircut because I don't want anything. I don't want to get the wind, the full impact of the wind in my hair. And it's right next to being in heaven. As I'm cruising to Jasper on that nice, sunny summer morning, my wife says to me, Gary, do you have sunscreen on? I don't need no sunscreen. Rah, you know. I don't need no sun. I'm out in the sun all the time. I don't need no sunscreen. So you know what happened? I listened to your wives. They're always smarter than the men. But I don't need none. So by the time we got to Jasper, my little balding spot there was sunburned. My head, well, there's a picture. My forehead was burnt. And my ears were burned. Well, that was not going to stop me. So after we came back from Jasper, I stopped in that hit and I got myself a hat. And I said, I'm not going to stop this. So I put a hat on, put a little sunscreen on my ears. My wife says, you look like an old man now. I said, I am an old man. I am. And I wore that all the way back. And, you know, when you get older, you know, my ears hurt after a while because of the wind. And so I said, nothing going to stop me. So I just took a little tissue paper and stuck him in here. So I had this hat on, a little tissue paper in my ears to keep the draft out of my ears. So every time a car would go by, I did this. I just didn't want them to see me look uncool. But I had the hat on anyways. The things you do. Life is rough, isn't it? Life is so rough. But here's what I'm discovering about life. Everyone has a bucket list. You know, I know you have a bucket list. And everyone has a dream. Everyone has a wish list, and I have other dreams that are way more substantial and more meaningful than this, of course, but We all have little dreams and big dreams and things that we want to do in life. What is your dreams? What is it that's in the back of your mind? You say, someday I want to do that. Someday I want to accomplish that. Yeah, a bucket list. We all have them. We all have them. Here's what else I also know about life. I also know this about life, that a dream minus persistence and passion and will and drive and determination is a dream that'll never be attained. There is no such thing as a dream that you can get to by clear sailing, an easy way. There's difficult times as you progress and try to get to your dreams. It's always going to be some rough roads in there somewhere. You see, life is made up of golden, gleaming suntans and also dreadful, painful sunburns. The summer we have been anticipating is here. The winter was long and the snow stayed around too long, and so the summer is here, but along with that comes pesky mosquitoes. And the heat wave is upon us, and we're saying, bring it on, but along with that comes humidity, lack of energy. This summer experience is not without its challenges. You will swat and you will sweat. That's what you'll do. Isn't that right? And then with this nice summer heat comes the risk of thunderstorms, and you've read it, large hail is a possibility. Thursday night here we had the wedding rehearsal for Bill and Kathy. Bill and Janet. Bill and Janet. And the rain came down Thursday night. You know, I had my nice little Mitsubishi out there sitting. I'm trying to do this. But I was thinking, I'm trying to do the rehearsal, but I'm thinking about my car. And it started a little hail, I could hear it. And I said, excuse me, I'll go out there and get my car and take it home and get it in the garage. I'll be back later. And Janet said to me later, what if it hails on my wedding day? I'm not worried about your wedding. I'm worried about my car. I'm worried about my precious metals. You know, I'm just joking. You know that. But no, not really. I'm actually serious. So the risk of tornadoes. We get the good, we get the bad. You remember the song? I remember this. It's summertime. That's good. That was from the group The James in 1958. I was 2 years old. And he says, the song goes like this, we'll go swimming every day, no time to work or play. Man, that sounds good. That's life. That's summertime. Then there was that great old gospel inspirational group from the 70s called Lighthouse. It sounds like a good spiritual name for a group, but they weren't too spiritual. But they had a song entitled Sunny Days. Sunny Days. How many remember that? Sunny Days. And he talked about sitting in the sun, half undressed, and asking myself, why do I work so hard? Oh, I love the summertime, and you love the summertime. It's a great season to be in. It's a wonderful time. Look up. Sometimes that sky is the most perfect shade of blue. Sometimes the wind doesn't blow. Sometimes it's calm. Other times you look up into the sky on a nice summer day and it changes to clouds and dreadful dark clouds, and maybe it rains and maybe it hails and maybe there's a tornado. See, we face the good and we must brace for the bad. Every one of us must take our licks in life. Good times and bad times. And then the Apostle Paul, he says these astounding words that blows me away. He says it twice in my text. He says, we do not lose heart. And I want to ask Paul, how can you say that? How can you be so confident? You say it twice. We do not lose heart. Other translations says it this way. We do not faint. We are not cowards. We do not despair. We are not discouraged. We never give up. Those were super words, but they were not said by a superman. You know, the guy who leaps tall buildings in a single bounce. They were super words that were not said by a superman. He was a normal human man who was speaking not only about his own heart, but he talked about on behalf of the rest of his comrades. He said, we do not lose heart. We are never going to give up. We have not lost our hearts in the pursuit of our dreams. Paul and his comrades in ministry had dreams. They had a calling of God upon their lives. They had a goal. They had a purpose. And nothing, they said, is going to cause us to lose heart as we pursue our dreams. Your heart, my heart. Your heart is the center of all the activity that you're engaged in. Your heart, it's the hub of you. All the roads cross at my heart and your heart. Now, when I went to that auction in March, there was that Mitsubishi Eclipse Spider convertible. And the number was 141 on the list, 141 on the windshield. And it comes up to 138. Then I feel the rhythm pick up. It starts beating. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in the crowd, calm, cool, and collected inside. So we get to 140. We get to 141. And then my heart is just racing. It's just pounding. That's the center of all activity right there. It's pounding, it's hammering, and I'm nodding. Sure, I'll go that high. Yeah. Calm, cool, but inside, oh man, there is a pounding going. It's almost pounding out of my chest. Yes, all things cross at your heart. I feel this way every time we do a singing Christmas tree presentation. I'd never want to do just one singing Christmas tree in one larger auditorium. I'd rather do 6 and have the heart beating 6 times, not just once, 6 times. Every experience, every presentation, sharing the good news of Jesus. There's 6 right there. Sharing the good news of Jesus. I feel that way every time we do the singing Christmas tree. I feel that way every time as I'm getting ready to preach and share a message to the congregation. I feel this way every time I'm preparing for a sermon. On Mondays is my sermon day. It's exciting. It's thrilling. It makes my heart race. It makes my heart pound. It's exciting. I feel that way every time I get the opportunity to share Jesus Christ with someone. I feel that way every time I go to the winter fair and do the beads ministry, and people walking by and they hear the gospel of Jesus. They come in and we share the Lord with them. My heart races, my heart pounds, roads cross at my heart. I feel the same way when I'm planning for the future of our church. For the fall, we're thinking of fall and spring already, and winter. We're thinking about what God is going to do in the final plans and preparation. It makes the adrenaline run. It makes the heart pound. It makes the excitement. It gives me butterflies. The heart. We all know what it's like when the heart gets moving. I feel that way every time I get on a roller coaster. I have no idea what this ride's going to be like, but I can't wait to get on this roller coaster. I'm going on one next vacation. I'm going to get on Wild Thing. It's in Valley Fair. The first drop was 150 feet. Whew. The last time I was on it was a long time ago, but Gary and I went on that 18 times one time in a row. I wasn't sick at all. And they make you get out and run all the way around again. I said, why can't I just stay on? Because you might be sick. I'm not sick. I'm fine. 18 times. I think Gary quit on me then. No. My son. Oh, the heart. You see, a loss of heart is a loss of life. And you can lose your heartbeat. You can have a loss of heart while you are still breathing. You can lose your zip. You can lose your energy and your purpose and your dreams and your visions and your aspirations and your goals. Everything crosses here, and when something happens to the heart, when the heart is lost, it just seems to zap everything out of you. I wonder how many here this morning would say, I know what it's like. There have been times in the past when I have lost my heart. Vince Lombardi said this. He said, fatigue makes cowards of us all. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. Tiredness can cause a loss of heart, a loss of desire when you're just completely worn out and burnt out. You got no heart anymore to do what you used to do. Well, there are other causes of a loss of heart. It could be a health condition. It could be a divorce. It could be a moment of indiscretion. It could be a personal moral failure. It could be an inability to lose weight. It could be depression. It could be a business failure. It could be bad circumstances landing on your doorstep. It could be a death of a loved one. And you suddenly lose your heart, lose your dreams, lose your desire, lose your will to live, lose your will to go on. Back this past spring, I guess February or March, I forget the exact date, a friend of mine passed away from cancer, lived in Alberta. And we drove out to Jasper. We stopped in to see his wife. Her name is Grace. And you could see the loss of heart. Inside of 1 year, she had lost her husband due to cancer and her daughter in her 40s because of cancer. Now, we understand that. I can understand that you want to embrace her and pray for her and encourage her, but you could see the loss of heart. And we understand, we know that the death of a loved one, it zaps us, it drains us, grieving. But at some point in time, she has got to get her heart back. And you can't rush it. But at some point in time, with support and prayer and encouragement, she will get her heart back. Someone said that there's a fundamental mistake at the core of every lost heart. It's the mistake of believing that if you can't see a way towards achieving your heart's longings, it means that there's no way forward. Because momentarily we can't see, we think that there's no way forward, and so we lose heart. That's a big mistake in our thinking. Reminded in Deuteronomy chapter 1, it's Moses' farewell address to his friends and colleagues and children of Israel that he's leading. And Moses reminds the Israelites about the report. He said, remember the spies. It seemed right to me that we'd send spies into the promised land, the land that God promised he'd give us. It seemed right to me, so we'll send them in. They came back with this report. The land is luscious. The fruit is wonderful. It's a great. But then we saw these giants, and they were so huge, and they're so big, and we were like grasshoppers in their sight, and they could just squish us. So they come back to the camp. Here's the report. Well, the Bible says, verse 28 of Deuteronomy chapter 1, that our brothers made our hearts melt. Instead of advancement, it was retreatment. They could not see a way forward. So they thought that there was not a way forward. So instead of advancing, they retreated. King James Version says in verse 28 of Deuteronomy chapter 1, they discouraged our hearts. They discouraged our hearts. We thought we couldn't do it, and so we go back and reverse, and for year after year, for many years, they wandered in circles in the wilderness. And Moses was saying, it's time to stop the wandering. It's time to stop. It's time to get the heart back. It's time for us to possess. It's time for us to go for the promised land. Have you lost your heart? Is it discouraged this morning? Maybe. Not maybe. But yes, you need to get it back. How on earth could Paul, how could he declare with such certainty? He was not a superman. But how could he declare with such certainty? And he says, we do not lose heart. I think he said it because he knew that it's possible. He said it because he knew others were losing their hearts. And so he knew that this is what people were thinking and what people wrestle with. But he said, me and my comrades, we are not losing heart. Now, then I began to think, okay, Paul, what did you go through, though? What were those heart attacks? You know, there's some heart attacks that he mentions in the Bible here. the enemy blinding the minds of unbelievers. Oh, that hurts a pastor's heart. And Paul was a pastor. Paul was a church builder. He birthed churches, started churches, and I know, being a pastor, what it's like to know that the enemy is blinding the minds of unbelievers so they will not believe. That hurts a pastor. And how about people saying no to the gospel? Paul also, that was an attack against the heart as well. And being a pastor, I know what that's like too when someone says no to the gospel. And you know that it transforms your life. You know it'll transform their lives. You know it'll create a brand new creation out of the old. But they say, no, it's discouraging. It can be. I know a pastor one time read a story. He said, I preached for years in church. I preached and preached and preached. Nobody came. And I preached an empty church. Finally, one person came to church. And I preached and preached and preached my heart up. And halfway through my message, he got up and left. I was so discouraged. I was so brokenhearted. I was saying, get out of the church then. Go on downtown. Go to the winter fair and share the beads ministry. Get where the people are. But I know what it's like, Paul, to be a pastor and to have your heart challenged, to have your heart attacked. The danger of losing your heart. And he says this, we're hard pressed on every side. No, Paul didn't have it easy. Another heart attack. Hard pressed on every side. We're perplexed. He had perplexing days. Days that he was bewildered. He was persecuted. You can fill in the blanks. Persecuted physically. He was struck down. And yet he says this, we have not lost our heart. Paul then, what was it that kept you in the race? What was it that kept you moving on? What was it that kept you sharing and teaching and believing and praying and calling upon God and building churches? What was it, Paul? Boy, you read through that chapter, there's all kinds of things. All I have time for is to share with you, zero in on two keys that I believe were part of many. He had a ring of keys. Two keys that kept Paul from losing his heart. The first one is this: ongoing interior renovation. That is one of the keys that kept Paul from losing his heart, even though it was attacked. Ongoing interior renovation. 2 Corinthians 4, verse 16, he says this inwardly. We are being renewed day by day. Every day, I am being renewed. Every day. My wife and I got married in July. December. That's close. I knew I shouldn't go there. We got married. It was 1982. It was December 11. See, I know that. You know something? That was the day when you could get married in the last day of the year and claim her income tax the whole year. I did that. Not for that reason, of course. But so we got married. Another one that we'd like to do is take a trip to cross Golden Gate Bridge. So on our honeymoon, we went to California, the place you ought to be. Jed Clampett said, from those of you that are my age and older, you know, Beverly Hillbillies. So we drove across the Golden Gate Bridge. Here's what I discovered about the Golden Gate Bridge. Some group, I don't know how big the team is, they never stop painting the Golden Gate Bridge. They start painting on this side. They work their way across the bay for those that are from Newfoundland. Or Nova Scotia like me. And they paint, sorry for those that are interruptions. They paint to one side. I like to have two stories going at the same time. I'm good, aren't I? No, I'm not really. And so they get to this side, and then they go back over and do it again. They're always renewing the bridge. There's never a time, that's why the bridge looks so good. It's always being painted. It's always being renewed. That's what I read. That's what someone told me. Whether it's true or not, it's got to be true. Then I begin to think, when do you stop renovating your home? I know exactly when you and I stop renovating our home. It's when we sell the house and move. That's when you stop, because you're never done. You're always renovating. You're always fixing. I got stuff down on a list that my wife has for me. Fix the taps. Fix this. Fix that. I'm busy working on cars. I got other things on my list. We're always renovating. I don't dare look that way. Those fiery darts from the enemy. No. I'm going to get it today. I don't even know what I was talking about. Oh, yeah. Have you lost your heart? I lost my place. That's when you stop renovating, when you move. And if someone told, let's get to the salvation part. If someone told you that when you make a decision, I have decided to follow Jesus, a salvation decision. If someone told you that at a salvation decision, it's like arriving to your new home, and now you can sit back and do nothing and coast and relax and sing Kumbaya and instantly mature, and perfect peace is going to fall into your lap. You're never going to get upset again. You never have any spiritual work left to do. They lied. We think that way. I finally arrived. Give me a seat in a lounging room. I am saved. Thank God I'm saved. Yeah, you're saved. Yeah, God has forgiven you of your sins, but that's a lie if someone said, you arrived and you do nothing now for the rest of your life. Acts 17:28 says, in Him we live and move and have our being. There's no sitting in that phrase. There's lots of movement there. In Him, in Jesus Christ, we live and move and have our being. Philippians 2:12, and Paul said this, work out your salvation. Warren Wiersbe said in his commentary, we're supposed to work out what God has worked in. You work it out, walk it out, live it out. Salvation is not a landing strip. On a 747, I finally land in the airport. No. Salvation really is a departure strip. You need to work at this thing. You got to keep this thing in the air, or it's going to crash and burn. Paul said in Romans 12, verse 2, be transformed. How? By the renewing of your mind. I did a search last week on what transformation means. The Greek word for transformation is transfigured. Remember when Jesus was transfigured before His disciples? His face began to shine. His clothes were radiant as white. And Paul says this, be transformed or be transfigured, radiate. That's life. That's vitality. By renewing your mind. Renovation brings transformation. To renovate means to rip out. To renovate means to throw out and replace. And so the Christian life is like a home. There's wear and tear, and there is a collection of things over time. Wear and tear and a collection of things over time both have to be dealt with on an ongoing basis. If you're like me, sometimes my faith wears a bit thin. There are times when the fruit of the Spirit shows signs of wear and tear in my life. Sometimes I collect a little bitterness and resentment. Sometimes I question God and I question His ways and I collect some questions. Happens to the best of us. And during those seasons, it's prime time for a loss of heart. When the challenges come. You're in the middle of questioning God, in the middle of having one of those seasons, and a challenge comes. You lose your heart. Why? The renewing hasn't been an ongoing basis. You let it slack off a bit. Paul said, I work at renewal day by day by day by day. That's why we talk about devotionals. That's why we talk about praying. That's why we talk about calling upon the Lord day by day by day, because you need to be renewed day by day by day. And so Paul said, I might be aging on the outside, but inside I'm constantly being renewed and refired, rejuvenated, because my spiritual exercises are in place. I have not been saved to sit still, but I've been saved to work out what God has worked in. I believe in being saved by grace, not by works. You know that. But I don't believe that we ought to sit back and just, oh, okay, God, whatever you want to do. God says, get up and start running. Get up and start doing. It takes discipline. Lots of discipline. Okay, so Paul, that's one key. Second key. First key was ongoing interior renovation that Paul had. Second key that Paul had that kept him from losing his heart was ongoing upward focus. See, in 2 Corinthians 4, verse 17 and 18, Paul brings in the fact that our troubles. See, he identifies, I have troubles. He says, I got troubles. I got problems. They're momentary. There's a point right there, too. Then he brings in the word eternal glory. And then he says, fixing your eyes on what is not seen. He is talking about a place called heaven. Heaven. It was in the 1970s when there was as I would call it, a rapture movement. This rapture movement was captured a lot of people, especially I remember running around camp as a young boy. The song, I'll See You in the Rapture, was a big song in the 70s. Everyone was talking about the rapture. At the end of camp, a common phrase for people to say to each other was, see you next year at camp, but if I don't see you next year, I'll see you in the rapture. Always thinking about heaven. Well, now it's 2013. A lot of years has gone by. Are we still thinking about heaven? Are we still thinking about the rapture? I lived through that era in the 70s of the constant reminders. And just before I went on vacation in June, the last thing I did was did the funeral for Spencer Lawrence. When I was putting my sermon together, naturally, you think about heaven. When a dear saint passes away, who's a believer, you know where they've gone. And there isn't a funeral that I do for a believer that I don't look up and say, they're way beyond me. They've gone ahead of me. They're experiencing something marvelous. And so I began to think about heaven as I was developing my message. And I asked myself some vital questions. Gary, do you still believe in heaven? I've been around a while now. It's not the 70s. I've been around long enough to sometimes it's possible for people to lose their looking up part of their Christian life. And so I asked myself those questions. It's good to ask yourself, do you still believe in heaven? I asked myself those questions as I was putting this sermon together. Do you think you'll go there? Do you anticipate seeing Jesus someday? Oh, Gary, do you anticipate and long to see your Father? And I asked myself, Gary, can you imagine what it's going to be like to go to a place where there's no trouble, no pain, no mosquitoes, no hail, no tornado. My dad used to call them tornadoes. No tornadoes. He was from the east. Wow. Sometimes, I'm guilty of it too, I forget about heaven. I don't think Paul ever forgot about heaven. What a challenge it is for me. Because we're bombarded by life, bombarded by all these things we have to do, and do we still anticipate? And I found myself saying, yes, 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 yes. I still believe in heaven. I still desire to go there. I long for the day when there's no more pain and sorrow, no more night, but constant day. Oh, I need to remind myself that over and over again. That this is not my final home. That's just junk. That 2008 Mitsubishi Eclipse Spider convertible, lovely orange color. Stop that, Gary. It is nothing but junk. Compare it. Oh, it's okay to have, those things and goals, and I know that, but let's keep it in perspective. Hey, this is not our final home. Don't put down your anchors too deep. Don't get possessed with everything that's around here. I like what the Bible says. Was it Abraham? I'm just passing through. That's all we are doing. All we are doing, passing through. Someone wrote a book, said, don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. It is, isn't it? All small stuff. So Paul says, this is what keeps me going. I got an ongoing upward focus. He talked so much about heaven. He looked up so many times, so much that he said, I'd rather go there than stay here. The King James Version says, and a strait betwixt two. I'm caught in the middle. I want to go, but I know there are people that still need me down here. So because of the need, because of the mission, because of the desire to bring people to Christ, I will stay here as long as I'm needed, but I still would rather go home to be with Him. So what I'm saying is, keep your eyes upon the skies. Take a peek to the hills and to the clouds and look up, because someday, the rapture is going to happen. Someday, the clouds are going to separate. Someday, the trumpet of God is going to sound. Someday, the graves are going to begin to shake and erupt, and all the occupants are coming up. And someday, we're going up to be with Jesus. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Someday, we're going up. And Paul said, that is how I make it. And that is how I keep from losing my heart. Ongoing, upward focus. I'm looking to Jesus. I encourage you with those words. Why don't you come, Carrie and team, and let's sing a song we sang earlier in conclusion. If you're here this morning and you would say, I just need someone to minister to me in my need, then we want you to know we're always available to pray for those that need ministry, prayer ministry. Because we believe that Jesus Christ is here by His Holy Spirit, and that He wants to bring change to our hearts. Day by day by day, service after service after service. And that's what I love and thrills me about every time we gather on Sundays. I always say, God, what is it that You'll do today? What is it? Because there's something I know that You want to do in someone's life. If you're here and you say, I've lost my heart, lost my edge, lost my passion, lost my dreams, maybe you could just take a page out of Paul's words here and say, but I have not been renewing my mind, but I have not been looking up. And maybe God would say, you need to do that this week to get your heart back, get your passion back. Stand with me as we sing, and if you need ministry, just step out and come to the front. Prayer teams, why don't you come right now? Be ready to receive people and pray for them. And then I'll close in prayer after we sing the song.